national champion, the Ohio State University football team, coached by Ryan Day. I know his family very well. His brother is a neighbor to my parents, actually. His brother was quarterback at UMass Amherst. Uh, his uh, his other brother, who's not involved in football, uh, I know through like 2 degrees of separation. So I know the Day family. I've never met Ryan, but anyway, he'll be in the NFL soon. And so will pretty much about 20 players on this roster are all going to get drafted. So we'll get into that. I thought this was a good moment for President Trump because JD Vance is from Ohio, so is Vivek Ramaswamy, and they were there. But more so, I think sports are, whether it's college or whether it's MMA or whether it's the NHL. I think sports are getting pulled out of this woke mind virus that took them over since all sports, whether it's everything from golf to, we're starting to get to turn the page on, the men playing in women's sports, the kneeling, the disrespect to the country, the bad sportsmanship. I think America and sports in general, again, at the college and pro level, are starting to, not just football, every sport, they're starting to turn the page on the wokeness that really did them in, guys, from like 2012 to 2020, the Kaepernick era of kneeling, the Leah Thomas and swimming and stuff. We're starting to move on from that, thank Christ, because it really, I'm a huge advocate of the American patriot not disengaging from enjoying and watching sports. Regardless if you're a hockey guy or gal, if you're just college sport, it's very important that people on our side of the aisle remain involved in coaching, in playing, participating, speculating on sports because it drives pop culture. Okay. Uh, whether you're, different than music does, it's different from movies. I'll tell you why. I mean, if you like hip hop and R&B and stuff like that, you could still like football. And if, there's a guy, a black dude that's into hip hop and R&B from like South Central Los Angeles, he'll watch USC football. Okay. Uh, some hillbilly dude down in Alabama, you know, he'll be watching, uh, he'll be roll tide on his truck and all that. He'll watch the University of Alabama. Okay. It brings people together. A lot of people that like country music like college football. A lot of people that like hip hop and R&B like college football. Okay. It brings people together. You can hate hip hop and R&B and still watch and be a country music person or whatever, a death metal person, and still watch, a Michigan Ohio State game on Saturday afternoon, right? So, or Texas and A&M on a Saturday afternoon. So it's very important that we don't uh, abandon that. And a lot of people were at a disgust, and I get it, but I just want to, reemphasize we're kind of turning the page. It's time to move on. It's time to stop. I don't watch pro sports anymore because Colin Cap. It's enough of that. We had our little meltdown over that for several years, and it needs to. We need to grow up and move on. Okay, I didn't like it either, but I'm not going to let that ruin 40 some odd years of watching sports because of one asshole. So, anyway, we'll get into that. El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, was at the White House yesterday. Uh, that kind of broke people, I think, broke liberals mentally because what you're having in this really unique relationship with El Salvador is they are rapidly becoming the privatized penal colony for the United States, probably other countries too. And it's their business model now where they're charging less money than the United States does. They have a very efficient prison system. They build these prisons in inescapable terrain, and they have it down to a science. And they're not afraid of dangerous people. They know just how to handle MS-13, Tren de Aragua, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, they'll never see the light of day in that country because it's just different. There's no parole, there's no appeal, there's no woke activist judge that's going to get you off. Uh, and Trump took it a step further yesterday, and I have a greasy poll out at Summer's request. Uh, do you think the question was posed? Because Bukele will take anybody. He'll take Ukrainian prisoners, he said. He'll take anybody who the United States deems as a terrorist or a threat. I mean, they're not afraid of the challenge. So that's a very useful ally to have, and they don't charge a lot of money. It's a fraction of what it costs to charge somebody. You know, Matt, look at what it costs to keep an inmate in the United States on death row, and they just appeal after appeal after appeal, 20, 30 years. Guy commits a crime in the early 1980s, he gets executed 30 years later. It's a waste of money, time, he's guilty, etc. Okay. Uh, there's none of that in El Salvador. Just send us the prisoner and we'll treat them like the human dog shit they are for the rest of their miserable lives without any cable TV or any of that shit. So it's a very unique system they have, and Trump is leveraging it. And you heard what he said yesterday. If you saw 5 minutes of that press conference, he wants them to build more prisons, and they want to. They've got a lot of mountainous terrain that you can't have like towns in, that makes it very advantageous for them to build these prisons. An army couldn't bust these guys out. And even if they managed to escape, they wouldn't survive making it back, whatever, 50 miles to civilization. So it's a very good situation we have with them. It's a very good bromance that Trump and Bukele have, and we need to capitalize on that because we're going to be sending a lot of people that way, not just Venezuelans and Salvadorans. We're going to be sending a lot of criminals down there, is my foreign criminals. But the question was posed about having U.S. Mass murderers, rapists, pedophiles, U.S. citizens, white people, black people, Americans, okay, who have no connection to El Salvador or anything. And it's an interesting question because I think it's worth looking into. I know the leftist activists, judges, and lawyers and ACLU, they'll be all over that. But I don't know. It depends. We have traders and such in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Excuse me, but they're military prisoners. Think of, do you guys remember, it was a long time ago, the American Taliban, John Walker? Okay, he was American born, had a U.S. passport, U.S. citizen. Okay, he was caught fighting American soldiers in Afghanistan, right? Look what happened to him. So I think now he's on U.S. soil in American prison, but for a while, for several years, he was in foreign country, I believe. So it's not unprecedented, and we'll see where that goes. But I think it's something we should keep an open mind about because it could happen. But anyway, they were flipping out. You saw CNN that what's her name, Caitlin Collins, who's, I seriously think is actually a dude, keeps asking all these annoying questions about fucking, are you going to bring that guy back? Are you going to bring that guy? So the answer is no. And I know you guys all get this, but if you need to explain it to the dense people in your life, that Salvadoran guy that they deported, he was illegal. He had not committed any crimes in the United States that we know of outside of being here illegally, which is a crime. So he goes under the nonviolent that we know of. We don't know if he's raped, murdered, or maimed people in his time in the United States. He was living in Maryland, a blue state. Shocker. We don't know. But what we can prove is he's had a deportation order that he defied in 2019, and he should not be in this country. He's never been legal. He has no inalienable rights as you and I do. Period. Full stop. I don't know what's, even Rubio said that. Even Rubio, who's usually a mild-mannered guy, was getting a little bit pissed off at the reporters. This is a very simple thing, guys. You've got it now with the American media is saying or implying that just because an illegal has lived in the United States and gotten away with it for a period of years, that makes them the same as you and me in terms of rights and freedoms. That's the mental gymnastics that they've done. And what's the old adage, the old saying? If you tell a lie often enough, you will believe it, right? That's where CNN is at right now. All they do is defend this guy. I don't even know his fucking name. It's not important, but it's just he's never coming back to this country. He's not a citizen of this country. He's in his country of origin. So his president, Bukele, has a right to do whatever the fuck he wants with him. And it's none of our goddamn business. And Trump doesn't want to make it our business. He doesn't care. He's staying out of it. The guy's there. I don't give a shit what happens to him. CNN cares what happens to him. I don't know why. Okay, so he wasn't caught raping and murdering an American citizen. Thank God. Like he's supposed to get a fucking prize for that. Okay, but they have intelligence. You know, not every member of MS-13 stabs people, shoots people, rapes people. They have like different factions in their gang. They have women in their gang. They need decoys. They need what they call coyotes or falcons. You know, it's a complex situation. I'll explain it to you someday. I've read up on this over the years. So, because he's not the one stabbing somebody doesn't mean he's not involved in the crime and the carnage that they commit in whatever country they're in. And we don't even have to get into that, guys. He's illegal. Okay. He has no status in this country, fit for deportation anytime. So that's how you explain it to the liberals in your life, to the people who don't listen, etc. Don't overcomplicate things that are simple. And that's, I think, a big problem. People are overcomplicating things that are simple. Let me weave that into Real ID really quick, guys. So if you're against Real ID, I want to hear from you. I honestly, this is why I'm for it. Because if you have a passport, you have a Real ID. Just out of you're going to need that as of May 7th, or depending on what state you're in, your license, it has that little star. But if you have a passport, you're fine. Listen, just out of force of habit, when I've flown domestically in the past, when I've gone to Florida, when I've gone to Texas, just when I go to the airport, I bring my passport with me. And obviously, I have my license. I have other government issued ID like gun license, and I have, with photos on it, my fitter's license. That's state issued. That's not federal, so it doesn't count. But I have official with my picture on it and all that. So what I'm telling you guys is this: it's not really a big deal. And here's why I think Trump is after this is going down this line. I think that this weaves into El Salvador and everything, and what we're talking about with deporting MS-13 and Tren de Aragua and Venezuela. There were 20 million people that were allowed in this country. Okay, what you're seeing, the arrests and deportations with the Kristi Noem cosplay and all that, they're getting rid of the murderers, rapists, the worst of the worst, and they're filming that, and they're making it viral so that it sends a message to the other people in hiding. Okay, this particular invasion we had under Biden, in my opinion, was not. The majority were not like some 25-year-old Guatemalan mother with 4 kids coming up to live in Los Angeles or El Paso, Texas, and be on welfare and be a future Democrat voter. Even Trump talked about that. It wasn't about importing voters this time. They were all military-age men, all in these gangs. Venezuela's crime dropped by 70 or 80% in 2022 and 2023. Why is that? Because all their criminals, literally all of them, guys, were sent up north. So it's costing a lot of money to deport, even though it's quick and it's not getting dragged out in court. It's costing a lot of money to deport. Tom Homan is going to spend between $200 and $300 billion this year with these mass arrests, okay, and mass deportations. The reason why I think Trump is pumping Real ID and why it's so abrupt, like May 7th, like, holy shit, that's like 3 weeks from now. is for the simple reason that I believe a lot of these illegals have fake IDs. And I'll give you a quick story. When I was working when I was working in the corporate world, in one building I was in Boston, there were two guys from Brazil, really nice, very fluent in English, uh, younger guys. They were janitors in the building my office was in. Okay. Now, I noticed one time, I don't know what they were doing. They were doing some sort of heavy work, like, and they took a lot of, they had to be on their hands and knees or something, fixing something or cleaning something. And they took the stuff out of their pocket. They both took their wallets out and they happened to be working outside of my office door. So I went out, there was like a conference table there. I'm like, and I didn't see anybody around. I see two men's wallets there. I'm like, what the fuck? Who left these? They opened them up and they were the two guys from Brazil. They each had licenses from Washington State. That's how I knew it was their wallets. I was like, did a client leave these in here? Because we had just had a meeting. Was it one of my coworkers? So they were just taking stuff out of their pockets, like their car keys and all that, so it wouldn't be so bulky when they were working on the ground or whatever. So I'm like, I asked these guys, I said, how the fuck do you guys have Washington State licenses? You live in like Everett or Chelsea, Massachusetts. This was like 2005, maybe. It's a long time ago. Like, oh, well, that's where we got our licenses from. I'm like, oh, okay, but you've only lived in Massachusetts. Right. Massachusetts and Brazil. I knew exactly what was going on. And about 3 months later, immigration came and took those guys. They didn't arrest them. They just said, you're done. So I guess they had stolen a social security number or whatever. I don't know what happened to them, but um, that was 20 years ago, guys. Can you imagine how the system's been exploited subsequent to that? So I think getting back to real ID, this is why you should be a proponent of it, because I think this is a tactic to get people to self-deport. Because what I think has been happening since the Biden invasion, migrant invasion of 2021 to 2024, is a lot of these people, as you know, as you've seen on the news, have gone to blue states like New York, like Maryland, like Massachusetts, et cetera, Illinois, California. They've gone to blue states and they've gotten driver's licenses. How they got it, I'd rather not know, and I don't think we need to get into the details. That's a DMV problem. But I think there's a lot of bad IDs out there because these guys are driving. Like, these are not, when we hear migrants over the last 3 years, guys, they're not like walking to, what's the best way? They're not going into Texas and like walking throughout the country. I mean, those of you that travel, or if there's anybody in here that drives a rig, you're not seeing people in rags walking up that you clearly came from the border. These people are getting vehicles, they're getting identification, and they're traversing the country. Like, how did the guy who murdered Lake and Riley, we know how he got up there, but how did, we know he walked into Texas and made his way to Georgia. But how do you go in 6 months' time from Caracas, Venezuela to Rome, Georgia? Okay. He's obviously driving. Yes, he's probably getting a ride, taking public transit. I don't know what's going on, but they're driving, guys. They're getting licenses, and that's how they've been able to spread out through the country. How they're getting it, like I said, I don't know, and we shouldn't get into the weeds on it. But I think this is part of Trump's calculus here, guys, is he's finding out, he has intel and he has data that there are hundreds of thousands of bad IDs out there. And these people are getting on fucking planes. They're getting on Greyhound buses. They're buying public transit tickets or apps. They're getting stuff that requires ID, buying cars, etc. And I think he's saying, "Oh my, this is costing a lot of money to deport these people." He's not happy with the pace of this, but people are working as hard as they can. They're getting hung up by these judges and the like. So the reason why I'm an advocate of real ID, at least short term, is because of the fact that I think there's a lot of bad IDs out there, and he has to get rid of them. These people won't be able to get on planes, right? and travel domestically even, never mind going to Venezuela or Colombia or wherever they're from. We need millions of people to self-deport, friends, if we wanna get rid of. I don't know if we'll ever be able to do it in totality, but we need a lot of people to self-deport, and when they find out they can't, with their fake ass fucking ID from a blue state, they can't get plane tickets or do anything like that. Because when you fly domestically, you don't need a passport, but you do need an ID, a photo ID to go through TSA. On May 7th, that changes. If you have a passport, which I'm sure many of you do, but you don't really fly internationally, you just fly domestically within the country, and your force of habit is just to flash your license that has that star. Don't fight it, guys, because don't bitch and moan about it. Just bring your passport if you don't want to get your license upgraded. Just in my opinion, it's a national security thing. All right. So I know the libertarians are going to freak out saying it's unconstitutional and all that. Who cares? Don't listen to them. They've been wrong about everything, and chances are they're wrong about this as well. So take that for what it's worth. Lastly, Ohio State, you guys start getting mics. I'll get into NVIDIA after a few of you speak. So Ohio State was at the White House yesterday. I thought that was pretty epic. Like I said, there's going to be much like the LSU team from that had Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on it and what have you. You're going to have a ton of guys drafted from this team. I thought it was a really good moment because Ohio is a MAGA state. It's probably the number 2 MAGA state after Florida. So, home of JD Vance, home of Vivek Ramaswamy. Trump's won it many times with good percentages. It's also going to be, in my opinion, a big hub of a lot of this return of manufacturing, especially if Vivek becomes governor in 2026, which I think he will. I think you're going to see Ohio become kind of like a little Silicon Valley in the Midwest. And I think that is a good thing. He's the right guy to bring some of that tech and some of that standard manufacturing back to a state that did a lot of it, in Cleveland and Dayton, Ohio, up through the late 80s. And it's time to bring that back. The Rust Belt, they call it, of course. So, but I thought it was a good moment because there's a lot of righteous players on Ohio State that are graduate. I mean, I don't know if they're going to have a team that good again. I mean, there's 20 guys that are probably going to get drafted on that team. Will Howard, the quarterback, the 2 running backs, pretty much half of the starting 11 of the defense, the defensive line. It's a really, really deep team. It was a fun team to watch. I'm not an Ohio State fan, but I like the coach because he's from my home state. I know the family. Anyway, prediction: Ryan Day will end up in the NFL, and I think he eventually will either coach his hometown Patriots, or possibly if the Niners ever get sick of Kyle Shanahan, he's going to go there. I foresee him being a coach of a big franchise. I don't think he's going to bust into the league, coaching Jacksonville or Carolina. I think he's going to go right to the top. So we'll see what happens. A lot of times these college coaches like Chip Kelly, they get really, really comfortable. And when they go to the NFL, it doesn't work. We saw it with Nick Saban. I think Ryan Day can make it work because I think the college game right now in 2025 is the most comparable to the NFL right now than it's ever been. When I was a kid, you were watching 2 different products in the 80s. When you turned on college football on Saturday, okay, and you were watching Troy Aikman at the University of Miami, the U. It was a different on Saturday. It was a different game on Sunday when I'd watch like the Giants and the Cowboys, okay? During like the Lawrence Taylor, the defenses were different. The offenses were way different. There was no gadget play in the NFL. It was very, very standard, powerhouse running back, offensive line. didn't really have a West Coast offense at that point. That came a little bit later. But anyway, I digress. I just think it's a good thing. Like last week, they had North Dakota State in a lower division, the champions of their division. That was great. My favorite, of course, was even though I'm a Bruins fan, was the Florida Panthers uh, when they came to the White House. And Trump's got a big collection of these 47 jerseys, doesn't he? So I hope that continues. Aaron Judge was named the Yankees was named the captain of the U.S. Olympic baseball team. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, sports is back. It's time to stop shunning it, friends. Start watching it. Start embracing it. Okay. So let me get some of your comments in. I'm going to read you some stuff from NVIDIA, but I want to take a break here and I want to hear what you guys have to say. So if you have any comments on, really, I think it's important we get a working knowledge of semiconductors, why it's so big with the tariffs, how the market really ripped yesterday after NVIDIA announced they gave the financial commitment of $500 billion, but they didn't commit to doing all the manufacturing in the U.S. Remember about 3 weeks ago when that Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA, it was still a great investment, but yesterday it was a game changer, guys. He committed to doing everything onshore. Okay, it's an American company, but I believe it's Taiwanese in origin. NVIDIA. I want to read you an article, read excerpts from that, and I have some other stuff I want to. I hate to say teach you because that sounds really pompous, like I'm any expert, but I want to show you guys some information and give you guys some charts that I think it's gonna help you because this stuff is very even for all of us. Me too. It's very deep. Uh, it's not that interesting, but it's important that you understand it if you want to get a better grasp of what we're doing as a country. Do I have it up in the nest? Yeah. So look at unusual whales right there. So President Trump's Truth Social, all necessary permits will be expedited to NVIDIA. So here's his post. NVIDIA commits $500 billion to build AI supercomputers, plus in the US exclusively. This is very big and exciting news. All necessary permits will be expedited and quickly delivered to NVIDIA as they will to all companies committing to part of the golden age of America. Okay. So these companies that are basically going all in on the United States, $250 billion to $500 billion in investment, plus bringing all the infrastructure and jobs here in the United States, even if it's a foreign company, they will get special treatment. I'm an advocate of this. This is what I voted for, guys. This is what we voted for. You might not have thought, when I'm going to the voting booth on November 5th, it's semiconductors built in the US or bust for me. No, you weren't saying and thinking that, but this is part of what you voted for, and it's very significant, guys, because China, until we come to an agreement with them, is gonna play this do this dance with cutting us off from rare earths, which of course semiconductors, which power everything from toasters to laptops, etc., have rare earth minerals as part of their composition. Okay, so big deal. They're cutting us off from it is a big deal, but we're circumventing them fucking us over by having a great company like NVIDIA, basically for all intents and purposes, become a U.S. company in totality. Now, they are a U.S. company, but Apple's a U.S. company. And up until recently, where have they been doing all their business the last 20 years? China. Okay. Steve Jobs was American. Tim Cook is American. He's not from another, he doesn't have another passport. But when you hear Apple, do you automatically think the United States? At least in the iPhone and tablet era, I would say the answer would be no. You think China, and you should. That's changing now, though. And who cares what their motivation is? Tim Cook is not MAGA. Okay, Jensen Huang is probably a Democrat. He probably voted for Kamala Harris, but How can he say no to this irresistible business-friendly climate? He's still gonna make billions of dollars. The company's still gonna do very well. These guys are not zealots. They're agnostic on politics, guys. They just wanna go where they get the best deal. Trump is giving them an avenue to get the best deal by doing everything here. All right, since I got no mic requests for the moment, I hope that changes. Let me read you. Let me just look at DMs really quick. And I want to read you guys something about this NVIDIA deal. All right, so I have this article if you wanted it. It is from NVIDIA, their own website. So NVIDIA to manufacture American-made AI supercomputers in the U.S. for the first time. NVIDIA Blackwell chip production starts in Arizona. NVIDIA opens first U.S. factories. All right, let me just give you this paragraph here. NVIDIA Blackwell chips have started production at TSMC's chip plants in Phoenix. NVIDIA is building supercomputer manufacturing plants in Texas, with Foxconn in Houston and the Wistron in Dallas. Mass production at both plants is expected to ramp up in the next 12 to 15 months. The AI chip and supercomputer supply chain is complex and demands the most advanced manufacturing, packaging, assembly, and test technologies. NVIDIA is partnering with Amkor and SPIL for packaging and testing operations in Arizona. NVIDIA AI supercomputers are the engines of a new type of data center created for the sole purpose of processing AI. AI factories that are the infrastructure powering a new AI industry. Tens of gigawatt AI factories are expected to be built in the coming years. That's a good thing. Quote, the engines of the world's AI infrastructure are being built in the United States for the first time, said Jensen Huang, founder and CEO of NVIDIA. Adding American manufacturing helps us better meet the incredible and growing demand for AI chips and supercomputers, strengthens our supply chain, and boosts our resiliency. Going to go to Rosie in a second, but you guys saw Howard Lutnick over the weekend on the news shows, or you saw the clips. He brought up a really good point. We can't be dependent on getting these things from Southeast Asia. And when they say supply chain, they basically mean being made in country on U.S. soil, so it's easier to get them. There's no shipping, trans-Pacific shipping from Taiwan to the United States. Okay, so it cuts costs down when you only have to put it on a truck versus shipping it across the Pacific Ocean. All right, logistics and supply chain factor into this. Okay, we have to start. Trump's talking about. I think he's going to pivot really hard into pharmaceuticals and medicines now. We saw during the pandemic, guys, that we even had. And I didn't wear them. I'm just saying, hospitals and stuff. There was issues getting latex gloves, masks for people that wanted to wear them. I don't want to get into that today. I don't care if masks don't work. I never wore them anyway. Even if they did work, I wouldn't wear one. Okay, so I don't want. I'm not here to talk about COVID, but or the psyop or whatever. But if you just take emotion out of it, and you just look at it, we had a test in 2020 and we failed that test because there were these third world shitholes that were hoarding these medical supplies that we probably gave them that they didn't need. So just again, take COVID out of it. There was a supply chain failure during the pandemic. We can't get caught with our pants down again like that. Rosie dropped. I'm sorry, Rosie. You come back. I'll shut up right away. Let me get you a mic. Guys, if you have your hand up and you got to go, interrupt me. All right. I need to stop. I got to get unplugged for a second. So just interrupt me. I'm not too proud or anything. Just go for it. I understand people are heading to work. Let me just read this last paragraph. The company will utilize its advanced AI robotics and digital twin technologies to design and operate the facilities. Okay. So it looks like they're going to be building a lot of robots, and they're going to need a lot of American hands to build those robots and maintain them. Guys, that's the new assembly line of the 21st century, of the golden age. We don't want American jobs to one person puts a bolt on, 5 feet down the line, the next person puts a washer on, 5 feet down the line, the plastic coating goes on, 10 feet down the line, they spray paint it, 20 feet further down the line, they package it. We're not talking about this isn't the 1950s, guys. We're going to be training Americans to build and maintain robots and monitor equipment that is going to build tablets, iPhones, semiconductors, and the like. Okay, those are going to be high-paying middle-class jobs because not everybody's going to be able to learn that. So what does that mean? You're going to create competition in the market for those jobs. People are going to want to get better primary and secondary education and technical training before they apply at NVIDIA or Foxconn. You get it? You feel me? You feel it, baby? That's where we're going. Very exciting times, to say the least. Let me get something else up there that you guys will like. I hope. So where are you at? Okay, so here's the back and forth of Trump with Caitlin Collins and President Bukele there. I can't believe she asked him if he was going to bring that illegal back there. And do you hear what Bukele said? Smuggling a terrorist. So he has the goods on this guy. He knows he's probably a disruptor. He's like, you're asking me to smuggle a terrorist back into the United States in front of the president. He goes, how can you ask me that? He said it was preposterous. He was offended that they even asked him that, like he's some sort of third world dictator, like he's Maduro or Castro. He was pissed. Take a look at that if you haven't. I'm sure many of you have by now. All right, what else do we have here? Okay, that's it for the nest, I think. Yep, okay, that's it for the nest. So I'll get these charts up if you want, but modern economy runs on semiconductors, the tiny electronic circuits named for the electrical properties of the material form which they're made are the brains for millions of devices, including space vehicles, car computers, smartphones, medical equipment, and appliances. As applications proliferate, semiconductor manufacturers will continue to prosper. Okay? These companies compete to produce smaller, cheaper, and faster chips for increasingly powerful and affordable tech products. Semiconductors can be divided into four main categories: microprocessors, memory chips, commodity integrated circuits, and complex systems on a chip, also known as SOCs, SOCS. Okay. Here's a few companies and where they're from. The list of the top 10 semiconductor companies include major players from the US, South Korea, and the Netherlands. Companies like Samsung, you guys all know Samsung from South Korea, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, that's that TSMC, and NVIDIA Corporation dominate the market. The semiconductor industry is highly competitive, with companies aiming to produce smaller, cheaper, and faster chips. All right. So you got Samsung is the $202 billion worth of revenue per year. NVIDIA coming in at number 2, $80 billion per year. Taiwan Semiconductor, $71 billion per year. Okay, so it's a very lucrative industry, as you could see. You can't lose money making these things because everything we touch, including this phone I'm talking to you on, has them in there. Janet, go ahead. You got a mic. Please weigh in if you want.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say that everything that Trump is doing is trying to make us self-efficient, where we can take care of ourselves, and it makes us stronger worldwide. That is the vision that he talked about the first time he ran. He's talked about it this time he ran, and 77 million people agreed with him. So I'm glad to see him doing it. Whether the left wants to bitch and moan about it, that's fine. They had their chance to strengthen our country, and they chose not to. They chose to weaken our country with all of the efforts of stealing money from the taxpayers and sending it to wherever they wanted. And they could do that because they had Congress approval. So it sucks. But I want to go back about the death penalty, because he's the one that said, Trump is the one that said he wanted the death penalty for pedophilia, right? For people that were arrested for trafficking children, selling children, all those different types of things. And that's another reason why I'm really happy to see that he's wanting to build these prisons, because we don't need them here. Let's get rid of them. Let's get rid of all these illegals, all these criminals, all these gang members, and clean our states back up. The sad truth is that the red states are going to be the first ones on board because they want safe communities for their families. It's sad to see that these people keep voting these lefties in these big cities. Texas is, every single city is pretty much neon blue right now. And if they don't start fighting back and take back their cities, that state's going to fall. And the next election we have for president, we're going to lose 45 or 48 electoral college votes if the liberals take over that state. So all of this all works together on our future for our country. So people need to start buckling down and changing their state back to red if we want to win. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you for letting me speak.
Well, you're welcome, Janet. Thank you very much. I agree with all that. I have it up in the nest too, guys, in the video article I was reading from. So it's a good example too of, tariffs don't work. Oh yeah, well, take a look at this. Tariffs don't work my ass. They are working, guys. All right. And you saw the market get out of its cope session from last week. Yesterday was a good day. The market opens in a little over an hour. I can tell you what stocks of mine ripped yesterday, because I think this announcement was yesterday morning with NVIDIA. A couple of small uranium companies I invest in, that started to rip. Silver mining companies. These are all, shares that are between $5 and $20. They're not huge companies. And I bought them, 4 and 5 years ago or somewhere around there. And, I'm not a big stock guy as much as it might seem like it. I like more hard assets, right? But, it's exciting now when your portfolio dips and goes up and all that, and I've given you my take in the last several spaces too on the market in general, guys. It was the tech stock market was artificial. Crypto was not a hedge. Everything took a hit. Trump is a currency guy, a fiat currency guy. I know that he's flirting with this crypto stuff. It's really just to make everybody happy. I don't think he believes in it. At his age, what the fuck does he need crypto for? It's just whatever. He goes, I think he's looking at it. If people want to invest money in it, fine. We'll do some coins and tokens, whatever, just appease people. A lot of rich people believe in crypto, guys. The Winklevoss twins, who you know from this Facebook, a lot of people just believe in it, whatever. I'm not here to argue one way for it or against it. But, make no mistake, Trump wants to increase the purchasing power of the US dollar. This is about the dollar, guys. Not about crypto. It's not about stocks. It's not even about gold. The Q people, they love gold. They think that we have, secretly enough gold to buy the world off. Maybe we do. But again, we can't be anywhere as a country, guys. As much as I like gold and silver, I don't want to have to fucking drag it to a store to buy something. The Q people do. I don't. I want the US dollar to be strong and righteous. I want it to be worth something, because right now it's monopoly money in your pocket. There's not 100 pennies. I just opened my wallet up a second ago. I do carry a lot of cash, so I don't want you to think I'm some sort of baller. But there's like $220 in cash in my wallet right now, in 5s, 10s, and 20s. Okay. and I have one $1 bill in there. There's not 100 pennies backing that right now. The note says it does, but you and I both know that's bullshit. So I want this to be worth this dollar right here to be worth 100 pennies, and it's not. Okay, so this $20 bill I have is not worth 2,000 pennies because we don't have those in circulation. We're playing with monopoly money, and we have been for a long time. I want to change that. And if crypto follows or gold, fine, great. Let's have a good fiat currency, sound money, which is what I like. You guys have heard the term sound money? So here we are. Okay, let's make it happen. Enough talk. Let's cut the bullshit and start to make things happen. I've got a line in here on stock market futures here. It looks like we're going to open a tick lower than yesterday after a couple of back-to-back 500-point gains. So looks like the U.S. stock futures edged down on Tuesday morning after the S&P 500, that's the 500 most desirable stocks, posted back-to-back winning sessions. Investors also analyzed the latest batch of first quarter earning reports. I don't want to get into that, but this is all tariff related, whether you believe it or not. But Tuesday's moves came after the major stock indexes ended Monday's session higher, buoyed by the tech sector. Okay, so tech had a comeback, Friday and yesterday morning. Stocks received a tailwind after guidance on Friday from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection revealed exemptions from reciprocal tariffs for electronic products such as smartphones, computers, and semiconductors. Still, comments from President Trump and Commerce Secretary Lutnick on Sunday suggested these exemptions might be temporary. The Dow gained more than 300 points on Monday, advancing alongside the S&P 500 and NASDAQ composite. NASDAQ has a lot of tech stocks in it. It's a smaller index than the New York Stock Exchange, all right? But it's mostly tech-based, okay? That marked the second straight winning session for the three major averages. Just reading through anything else here you need to know. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is what investors call vol, V-O-L, short for volatility. In other words, chaos in the market. I love vol. I embrace the vol, okay? A lot of people call it buy the dip. This isn't really the dip, though. Here's the problem. Even smart people, I just have a disagreement. They're not right, and I'm not wrong. I'm not right, and they're not wrong. Like you'll hear the Cardone brothers and stuff. They think this is a dip. It's not a dip. I would tell Gary and Grant respectfully, this isn't a dip, brother, because you guys have, can invest in any market, and they're big crypto guys. In my opinion, crypto, as we saw, was very overvalued. You saw how Bitcoin dropped. Bitcoin was over $100,000 around Valentine's Day. Now it's what, 70 something. So much for that being a hedge against fiat currency and a market crash, a potential market crash. And that wasn't a crash. That was just a equilibrium balance. So what I'm saying, guys, is the Bidenomics, the Federal Reserve cutting rates in 2021 and 2022, when we were essentially in a proxy war with Russia via Ukraine. Do you guys ever wonder? I know I talked about it yesterday. Why? I know some of you, California people, you're excluded because you guys always get bent over. You ever wonder why we were at war when we were at war with Russia actively in 2022 and 2023? Have you ever wondered why our gas wasn't $7 and $8 a gallon when it should have been? Well, Biden opened the strategic oil reserve and depleted it by about 40%. But did you ever, if ever there was a time we should have had paying twice what we were paying for gas and why oil was $70, $80, just a little bit more than it was now. Why weren't we paying $7 a gallon, $6 a gallon, $5.50 a gallon in the midst of that proxy war? Well, because the you know, Biden was sabotaging our reserve. Jerome Powell was cutting interest rates when he should have actually been raising them. All right. Yeah, et cetera. And mortgages were stagnant. People were not getting good financing on using the bank's money, so to speak. So people that were buying these tech, you remember GameStop, people that were investing in tech, friends, and people that were fucking putting all their money into crypto because they thought Biden was going to crash the US dollar. It wasn't going to be the world reserve currency anymore, the petrodollar. I understand. I appreciate their them being proactive. But as we saw, crypto is not a hedge, and these stocks were not a hedge. All the people that were telling you to find a hedge during the Biden years, it's usually the Bitcoiners, okay? Don't put your money in the bank, buy crypto. Well, their fucking theory got blown out of the. Bitcoin should have rose like gold did the last 2 weeks. Instead, it declined by 25%. Okay, gold is. Let me see what gold is. Hold on, because I got an app on my phone here. Let me see really quick. What is gold trading at this morning? I can tell you when Biden got in office, it was like not even 2,000. It was like 1,900 or so. It's at least $1,000 more than that per ounce. Oh, let's see. Gold is up $8.80 this morning. It's now over $3,200. Silver's down a penny. It's about $33 an ounce. Okay, so what did we learn, friends? In my opinion, gold supersedes Bitcoin as the true hedge, at least now. But gold has been undervalued for 50 years. Gold should be $5,000 an ounce, guys, in my opinion. The fact that it's this low is criminal because it's not practical. Like I said, even I don't want to bring gold around to turn it into real. People are going to be walking around with gold, 1 ounce gold bars in their pocket to buy shit. Okay, so I understand that, but it's a good investment now, in my opinion, not financial advice. Whereas I would say Bitcoin, this is not a dip. People get excited. Oh, Bitcoin was over 100,000, and because it's a market volatility, it's 72,000 and change today. I'm going to buy more. I don't know what the value of Bitcoin is. Okay, I don't think it's six figures. I don't think this is a dip. I think what you had was an inflation during Biden years, and it was, as we proved, it was not a hedge against the stock market crash. And that wasn't even a crash, guys. That was like training wheels. That was nothing. That bloody Black Monday was, or Bloody Monday, or whatever the fuck they called it, that was nothing, guys. That was a blade of grass blowing in your face if you think that was a crash. Now, here's why boomers are upset. I got into this somewhat yesterday, but I think now is a good time to give you the deets on this, friends. Let me just check the DMs. Grab a mic, please, so I'm not talking for 2 hours. I want to hear what you have to say. Your opinion is not less important than mine, and your argument against anything I say is possibly not wrong. So I want to hear it. But let me just take a look at this. So this is from, and I have this, and I got it from Citizens Free Press, so there was no paywall. The hell is it from? What paper is this? Wall Street. Yeah, Wall Street Journal from Saturday or Sunday, but it's very relevant here. So wealthy buyers are backing out of multi-million-dollar home deals. Okay, these are the people that are really hurt. It's not people like you and I. These are the people that really got hurt during this so-called stock market crash. Okay, President Trump's trade war and stock market chaos have put the once unshakable high-end home market on ice. Okay. On March 1st, New York real estate agent Peter Ocean thought he had reason to celebrate. His clients accepted an offer of $10.25 million for their 4-bedroom co-op in Lenox Hill, which had been on and off the market for more than a year, last asking $10.5 million. Days before the planned contract signing, the buyers even came back to purchase some of the furniture. Quote, they weren't even going to paint, Ocean said. Then came President Trump's trade war, which sent shockwaves through the stock market. Ocean was riding the subway to his office on March 13th when the couple's agent called to say her client's stocks were down 25% and the deal was off. It was like a gut punch, said Ocean, who then made a painful call to his client who worked in finance before retiring to Florida. Shocker. Floridians. Guess what age bracket they were in? Put yourself out on a limb. Do I need to do a greasy poll? I can guarantee you it wasn't a guy my age. Anyway, continuing. You'll love this, friends. Quote, the first words out of my clients' mouths were, Trump fucked us, Ocean said. President Trump has defended tariffs on China, but on April 9th, he placed a 90-day pause on reciprocal with other countries, saying the reaction was getting yippy. The luxury real estate has been largely unstoppable for the past few years. Oh, geez, I wonder why. Who was president the last 4 years? Who was profiting the last 4 years? It wasn't us. It was the 1%ers during Biden. Biden did more for rich people than any Republican could have done in 10 lifetimes. I don't think you guys grasp the magnitude of how well people like Mark Cuban and Jeff Bezos and Jamie Dimon and et cetera, Bill Ackman did during the Biden years. Ray Dalio. Okay, continuing. Okay, so this is the heart of the issue, friends. I promise it'll all make sense when I'm done. This is not some tangent by me. This is so you understand that 40% of Trump voters don't even care about the stock market. Continuing, the luxury real estate market has been largely unstoppable for the past few years, fueled by stock market gains and massive wealth appreciation since the pandemic. In places like New York, shocker. Palm Beach, Florida, where Trump lives, shocker. Los Angeles and Aspen, Colorado, shocker. Now, New York, so basically the Hamptons, Beverly Hills, fucking Palm Beach, Florida, and Aspen, Colorado. What's not in that equation? How about East Palestine, Ohio? How about Rochester, New Hampshire? How about Caribou, Maine? How about Dayton, Ohio? Don't hear any of those real America towns. They weren't profiting. This is incredulous, guys. Like, this is simple shit here. Who is benefiting under Biden? Not wealthy, super wealthy people. People like Trump. The billionaires. Let's just cut to the chase. Billionaires, okay? I'll get the Fed up here in a second. Let me just finish this. Wealthy buyers have plowed billions of dollars into the luxury home market with little regard for interest rate hikes that have slowed the rest of the housing market. Case in point, guys, they're buying these houses cash, basically. If you can afford to buy a $10 million house in the Hamptons, does it really fucking matter what interest rate you get if you decide to finance it? It sounds like, and I take that back, it sounds like this couple, this real estate agent is talking about, they went through financing. Trust me, they're liquid if they're getting a fucking loan for $8 or $9 million bucks. You don't have to worry about that. Now, market gyrations and tariffs, both current and pending, are casting a shadow on high-end property as buyers pull out of deals or tap the brakes amid global economic uncertainty. In the U.S., the richest 10% have 36.3% of their total assets in stocks and mutual funds. That's what this is all about, friends. That's what this this meltdown is about. It's because old, rich, white Democrats have 1/3 of what they own in the stock market. 1/3 of their net wealth got erased last week. Probably not coming back to that level, to be honest. Almost done here. According to a new report from Realtor.com, which I go on every day as a landlord, which found real estate comprised of 19% of their total assets. Until recently, luxury sales were an upswing, and agents said high Wall Street bonuses indicated a strong year ahead. Overall, the median sale price for U.S. luxury homes, defined as the top 5% of sales, rose 9% during the second quarter of 2024 when Biden was still president, when Janet Yellen was still the Treasury Secretary, Jerome Powell was at the Fed, continuing more than twice as fast as non-luxury homes, according to the most recent data available from Redfin. And markets lost 6.6 trillion in an epic two-day rout on April 3rd and 4th. Fallout in the high-end real estate market has been swift, even as many investors recouped losses during a large market surge on April 9th, following Trump's announcement of a 90-day pause on certain tariffs. I'm going to pause there and let Fed Up go. This is the best article I've read, guys, in years. I want you to have it. And it's not through a paywall. I'm going to put it on my page and put it in the nest as Fed Up is speaking. You need to read this. You need to understand what the root of the matter is and what the real problem is. Rich white Democrats had a bad week on Wall Street, and they're taking it out on the rest of us. And yes, I'm being divisive. And I'm proud of it because you need to know the truth. I'm not going to come up here and lie to you. Go ahead, Fed Up. Thanks for waiting.
No problem. Yeah, it's rich white Democrats and Republicans like Eye Patch McCain, right? You know, the ones that have made their living off of piddling and playing with the stock market and piddling and playing with us. Now, the ones that really know how to make the stock market, I showed this to somebody when all that supposed insider trading stuff came up, right? And they were saying, oh, well, the head of Charles Schwab was in Trump's office and his people made hundreds of millions of dollars. I was like, yeah, so what? Warren Buffett made $11.5 billion in one day because of the market swing. And because that's what he does. You know, he buys when it's down. He knows the market's going to bounce back. It always bounces back. You know, is it going to bounce back in one day or is it going to bounce back in 3 years? Who knows? But it's going to bounce back, you know. If that wasn't true, the market would be lower than it was after Black Friday. It would have been lower than it was after every other crash it's had, right? No, it bounces back. And this, you know, sky is falling crap they were doing was just to be a divisive, just ball of shit, basically. And then, yeah, you're right about the luxury housing. And, well, we've heard it said before that was one thing that has been the party flip. The Republicans used to be the party of Wall Street. Now the Democrats are the party, very much so the party of Wall Street. You go find somebody who's a true Wall Street trader that's a Republican. That is their main thing. It's rare, you know, because they know where their bread's buttered, you know. And if they are a Republican, they are definitely a Rhino Lindsey Graham part of the Republican Party. They know who is going to be favorable to them. And you know, and the thing is people don't look at sometimes is this whole effect that they had, it trickles down. I know people hate that word when it comes to economics, even though it's absolutely true. And where trickle down happened with this was you had these rich people that were buying these houses for cash, and you did have outside things like BlackRock, and that was doing the same thing. But they were also buying it on loans because here's a thing that they figured out. I saw an interview that was it Kawasaki, the guy that did Rich Dad Poor Dad, was talking about. And we know Biden caused a lot of inflation for the last 4 years, and to a certain extent, Trump did because of the COVID money printing. There was some deflation of the currency. Well, when that happens, if you're a rich person where you're going to get the best loan rate possible, right? You buy stuff with other people's money because you actually make money at the end of it. if inflation outpaces what you're paying, if inflation rate is higher than your percentage rate, you actually make money on the deal using other people's money to buy high dollar items. Kawasaki said that's how part of how he made his fortune. It was knowing the times to use other people's money to buy and actually make money at the end of the deal off of the inflation rates and other various economic factors. And that's people that are rich, it takes money to make money, and they're typically rich for a reason. They were either born into it or they know how to make money. And so many people don't look at this stuff. And then the second part of the trickle down, and I'll end here, is other people see this working and being successful, so then they start doing it. But it's not me and you, because we don't have the money to do that. It's like what's happened in my community, where you have a building company of builders who have the money to be able to buy 5 or 6 houses cash, have the resources to renovate them, so they can afford to go buy a house 10% over market with cash or on loan, whichever's most advantageous, renovate it and flip it over and start renting it for, significantly more than what their mortgage is on it. And that's what's been happening in my community, where we've had, I know just in my neighborhood, 5 houses that used to be owned. And when the people left, instead of that being personal properties anymore, those came off of the market and are now rentals owned by one of our local builders. And because they saw what the other people are doing, it trickled down to them, that part of the economy. And now that's been taken out of being personal homes for folks. And it makes it where our kids are less likely to be able to own a home like us, because there's not just the economic factors. You have the amount of just physical properties being lowered by all these jerks buying them and turning them into rentals.
Do you want my suggestion, everybody? Those of you that are parents in here, I never really like to give this sort of advice, but if you've got like teenagers or kids about to go into college or whatever, don't pay for a portion of their education. Set up a trust and leave them your house. That's going to be a better, like I'm doing. No college money. Give them a house. I'm going to tell you why, because it's going to be much harder to get in the next 4 years. It's a better utility of your money, and you don't want your kids living in some shitty apartment with roommates that don't pull their weight or whatever. I never really say things like this, but your money is better served leaving your house to your kids. You can always downsize. There's always 1 or 2 of you, and you might have 2 to 4 children. Let them all live together in the house and put it in a trust. That's what I'm doing. It's I don't like sending good money after bad investments. Now you're going to say, "What? Your kids are a bad investment in college?" No, I don't agree with the price structure of university. And unless they get scholarships or whatever, that's up to them, of course, and their achievements. So, but I don't see the sense in spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on an education. I don't think any education is worth the price that the market's dictating right now. So, and what Fed Up was just going through with houses and stuff like that, it's going to be harder and harder to get a home, right? So, who wants to pay rent? Go ahead, Fed Up. Finish up. I'm going to finish this article because it was so good. There's other good shit in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, well, and the other thing too, school is becoming, because of certain movements in the industries, is becoming less and less of a good investment because the prices, of course, we know how this prices skyrocketed, especially for 4-year degrees. 2-year degrees, they can go for a good number of them. They can go to community colleges, which are still relatively affordable. But so much of the industry is going to, computer based and certifications that it doesn't make any sense. And there's whole big pushes in the industries. Like there's an organization I saw a video on that they're going around and they've got like 200 companies they've talked to that they're really making a push to go away from 4-year degrees and the requirements for them because they're not needed for a lot of fields. Somebody wants to be a doctor, lawyer, stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe even certain engineering, stuff like that, it makes sense. But if you're going into most computer and tech fields, a 4-year degree is freaking useless. You don't need to go to a 4-year college and take, you know, a lot of these extra classes. You need to go somewhere focused that teaches you what you need for the field and then go do it. And that's where I think things are going to move as we're moving more into the technology age, and especially with the AI stuff coming forward and all that. It's going to be focused on people that have been trained on what they need for the job.
Yeah, technology is going to be its own thing, guys. And when I open the space, I would like to remind you all that these manufacturing jobs outside of the auto industry are, niche things, but it's going to be training a new generation of Americans on programming, maintaining, and repairing robots, okay, and working with AI. It still requires tools and mechanical, that's the new manufacturing. People are misconstruing, the people that are against tariffs are misconstruing what Trump wants to do. And he's not talking about, again, one person puts the bolt on the threads. The next person puts the washer. The next person puts the plastic housing. It's not 1950s, man. They don't even do that in China, guys. You do realize all the stuff that Trump is tariffing is made by either slaves or robots. Okay, he's not trying to pit a middle class family from the Midwest up against a middle class family in Guangdong province in China. There is no middle class in China. You're a slave or you're an elite. There's no in between. You're a peasant or you're part of the Communist Party. So people are complaining about tariffing fucking robots. That's what the war is against, their robots and AI. It's not against, it's slavery, for fuck's sake. I hear these libertarians that are against the concept of tariffs. They're defending human slavery. And not just in China, in Mexico to a lesser extent, India, no, but China's by far the biggest offender in all this, offender. So we can't get back to. Why do you think the Chinese put those AI propaganda videos out of like fat diabetic people out of breath working at a sewing machine? They don't even do that there anymore. And it's certainly not people. Nobody's that well fed in China. They're sadly emaciated 12 and 13-year-olds doing that kind of work. And we should be against that, God damn it. I don't care if they're Chinese or Mexican or Indian. It's about humanity, guys, and we need to put a stop to this economically. I mean, we can't go over and liberate 2 billion people, but we could do what we can on our end to say, no, we're not going to buy slave-made shit anymore or robot-made shit. At least have them be robots with the red, white, and blue on them that are in places like Tennessee and Arizona instead of Beijing and Shanghai. How about that? Let me finish this really quick. That's up in the nest, by the way, this Wall Street Journal article. But real estate is really my side gig, so that's why I'm obsessive about it, guys. And you can learn a lot from the economy by what's going on in the housing market. All right, let me continuing. I'll get to Tim in a second here. Quote, we've been on a wild ride the last 2 weeks. Buyers are nervous about everything, said real estate agent Aaron Kerman of Christie's International in Southern California, who had a roughly $65 million deal fall through in Bel Air. Can you imagine selling a property that's 65 million? Christ. Kerman's clients, international buyers, I bet you $1 million they were from Dubai. International buyers who had been looking for 6 months went into escrow on a house on roughly 1 acre 2 weeks ago and backed out of the deal on April 3rd. They were within a contingency period and got their money back. They got spooked, Kerman said. He said some buyers are swooping in to buy real estate as a hedge against the stock market, which actually is the correct mentality. But others are pausing amid uncertainty. When news cycles get too negative, it just really makes people second guess their decisions, Kerman said. Miami real estate agent Julian Johnson of the Corcoran Group said one of his clients put a 40 million plus deal on ice in Coral Gables over concerns about his business, which is tied to imports from China. Unfucking believable. The client who moved to Florida from California last year made a $42 million offer on a 15,000 square foot house and even spent 90 minutes walking through the property on April 6th. The next day, Johnson said he had a change of heart and requested a 30-day pause in negotiations. I mean, listen, even my 401k got whacked this week, Johnson said. You feel poor? You don't really feel like you want to go out and spend money. Okay, let's go into perspective really quick, then I'll go to Tim. This is a high-end real estate broker, guys, who's selling $65 million homes. What do you think his commission is on that? He's also an elite. He might not be living in the homes, but he's selling them. So when he says he feels poor, think about it. He sells one $65 million or $40 million property a year. He's done. That's his year. That's his income. He's a multimillionaire based off of that. So again, I'm not attacking the rich. I'm just saying these people don't have problems. They don't live in the real world like you and I. This isn't a problem. You know, when you're liquid 50, 60, 100 million and 30% of your portfolio gets whacked in a stock market flip out, you're not poor. You're not going to not be able to pay your mortgage. You're not going to pull your kids out of Stanford because you can't afford the tuition. I mean, we're talking about very, very much first world problems, which are not problems. They're not even inconveniences. Let's just be realistic here. I think we're losing realism when we're hearing debates from smart libertarians that tariffs don't work, like Clint Russell. He's a very intelligent guy, but he's just wrong. Okay, you could be smart and wrong. Milton Friedman is a genius. I don't agree with him on everything. I've read his book. Warren Buffett's smart. Even he's wrong sometimes. So it's okay. Smart people can be wrong, guys. It's allowed. I don't know if you realize that or not. Thomas Massey can be wrong. Rand Paul can be wrong, which they are frequently. Clint Russell, they can all be wrong. Libertarians are not perfect as much as they try and convince you that they are. Tim, what's up?
Yeah, I was just coming in to kind of support what you were saying there when it comes to your kids. So my son does exterior work. He's done commercial, residential. He has his own thing going right now in residential. He just finished an airplane hangar for a client in Alberta. I'm in BC. And the guy that owns the airplane hangar, he has a very large business in Alberta that my son he happened to stumble upon my son. My son does pretty good work. He does, this guy, he does, I lost the name. It's like gauges in the oil patch work. What is it, Gad? Instrumentation. He does instrumentation, which is, it's a fancy word for checking gauges. And there's a lot more to it than that. But he offered my son a job. So in order to get a job like this, you need a few years of university, right? College, university. You need a pretty fancy education behind you. And the reason why he offered my son a job is because my son pays attention to detail. My son doesn't have an education. He just pays attention to detail. What I'm seeing here in Vancouver is everything you're talking about. The price of homes are just insane, absolutely insane. And we're seeing this money come from overseas and whatnot. I mean, they're buying they're paying $3.5 million for a 3-acre lot with a house and barn and shop on it, and they're putting the house and the shop in a bin with an excavator, and they're building, they're putting another $1.5 million, $2 million into a house. So that's the kind of money some of these people have. And you can't compete with that, right? As a blue collar worker, carpenter, like you can't compete with that. Some people say, well, you could sell your home. Well, and then what, right? You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going up. You're not going anywhere. You're stagnant. And another thing, when it comes to production, this, bringing back industry, I don't know if people know this or not, but a lot of the factories in China, there's not even any lights on. They're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no lights on. It's all robotics. That is the future. So, like you said, if your son or daughter is a techie type person and, wants to do something, that's something to look at. But otherwise, people that are doing handyman work, people that are doing lawn mowing, they call it landscaping. I'm a landscaper. No, you mow lawns for a living, right? These guys are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just maintaining these people's properties, just pruning a few hedges, raking it up, mowing the lawn. Ceiling fans. People are paying $300 for a handyman or handywoman to come into their home and change a ceiling fan. Well, these people, they change out ceiling fans every 18 months, every 2 years. They don't like it. They need the new style, right? We've all seen this. I mean, I've seen people buy homes and, the person selling it just put 150 grand into the kitchen. Well, someone will buy it, gut it, and spend 250 grand on the kitchen. So yeah, this is where we're at. And it's not good for, it kills the middle class, right? It cuts the head right off it.
It does. And again, I want to reiterate, nobody did better the last 4 years than the top 1% of wealthy people. So when you hear even Republicans down here talk about Bidenomics, and they're not wrong, but it's not true. It's a canard that nobody did well during the Biden years. I mean, look at Mark Cuban. What now? You know why Mark Cuban was so mouthy during the election and supporting Kamala. He didn't want Trump in there because, as much as I can't stand him, he's a very smart guy. Mark Cuban is the only guy that kept his shirt in the .com bubble, and he ended up buying an NBA team. Okay, he's the only guy that remained a billionaire post 1995 from the .com era, right? So he's not stupid, and he knew exactly what would happen. He knew that this was Trump's plan, and his little gravy train during the Obama years. And by the way, he's got very diversified business, and he's involved in the Chinese market. Obviously, if you own an NBA team, you're connected to China. End of story. Okay, so yeah, and he knew exactly what was going to happen, and what was going to happen is a Main Street reset. Dan, what's that billionaire's name? Ray Dalio. He's a guy's flipping out about. He's basically what he's saying is, well, I don't want the oligarchy to end. I'm not worried about a recession. I'm worried about my status as a 1%er in this country. And these fucking people go on CNN and they say this, and that's how stupid they think we are. They're saying I'm a better person than you because I'm a better investor, and you're not fit to be in the boardroom. You're fit for the pick and shovel. You're not fit to make money. And you know what? On a very primal level, I don't disagree with that. We have way too many people in higher education that don't belong there, and we have a labor deficit. in the middle class. So it's a multi-tiered thing here, but it's just the arrogance of these oligarchs, these billionaires. They don't want us to get ahead. They like the monopoly of being at the 1%, at the top of the food chain, guys. Little do they know that we're all going to die and be put in a pine box or incinerated, and we're all equal when we're underground, aren't we? Don't worry about it. They're going to find out really quick what this economy is going to look like. In about 2 years, you won't even recognize this country in a good way. Arthur, what's up?
Hey, Gads. Thanks for the mic. I just joined a few minutes ago, but I just wanted to weigh in. So, you're talking about the 1%. I would submit that these folks are the 10 the top 10% of the 1%. You know, they're at a whole other level and a whole other stratosphere, and I agree. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I work in the markets, but the stock market is the majority of North Americans don't invest in the stock market, right? The stock market is not a gauge of how things are going for the average person, right? The average worker, the shrinking middle class. Um, I went to school in the Midwest in Southeast Ohio, and it was a long time ago, 30 years ago. But I'll tell you, even back then, in that area, which has just been absolutely blighted uh, via the opioid crisis. If anyone's interested in reading a fascinating story about what happened in that area, there's a book called Dreamland, and it was written by a fellow named Sam Quinones, and it's all about the emergence of pain clinics and opioid abuse, which paved the way for the black heroin trade coming from a cartel in Mexico. And that area, the only industry there now, there used to be a robust metal industry, steel industry. Of course, you have the Ohio River that intersects, and fabulous area. But the only industry there is refining. There's a shrinking refining industry, and a small chemical industry that's almost left for dead. So that's what it's about at the end of the day, is giving young people hope. And this is the problem, is that when young people lose hope, and young people can go to schools and get useless degrees and not be able to apply those into any sort of meaningful career. And so when young people lose hope, they turn to alcohol, and they turn to drugs. And I mean, you have a trend in that area, Southeast Ohio, West Virginia, where uh, grandparents are raising kids, right? They're raising their grandkids because mom and dad are either dead or in jail from opioid abuse. So you know what? This has happened over decades. It didn't happen overnight. And while we've been enjoying lots of cheap products from China, they've been feathering their nest and have become, a rival economic power to the U.S. And it's got to stop. And I don't agree with everything that Trump is doing. I wish the tariffs would be a little bit more focused. And I think as we move down that road, they will be more focused because the market will drive that. I don't think North Americans are going to be sewing Nike shoes and licensed soft goods. I don't think that works. So why put massive tariffs on that sort of stuff? So I do think we are going to see more focused tariffs, and I don't see any other way to bring manufacturing back to North America. We're too far gone. We need a massive shock to the economic system. And you know what? if people's 401ks take a hit in the short term, if my client base loses a little bit of money in the short term, so be it. They're fine. They're going to be just fine. And I'll just close with this. The St. Louis Federal Reserve is a great website if you want to look at some really key macro trends and indicators. And so what you were talking about, Gads, which is the 1%, there is a chart of on the St. Louis Federal Reserve of the percentage of wealth in the United States controlled by the top 1%. And that number was about 25% a decade ago to 15 years ago. It's now almost 33%, 32 or 33% of the wealth in the United States is controlled by 1% of the population. And then the flip side to that is you could take a look at the total amount of credit card debt outstanding. And this is not at any given time, this is revolving debt that credit card holders are carrying. So that number is now it's almost $1.2 trillion of credit card debt outstanding. And that number doesn't mean anything unless you look at the trend. The number is up 50% in 4 years. So outstanding credit card debt 4 years ago was around 750 billion. It's now 1.2 trillion. So that sums it up, right? 1% being wealthier and wealthier, controlling more of the wealth, while the rest of the country, or let's say the middle class on down, are carrying massive amounts collectively of credit card debt at 20% plus interest rates. We'll land it there.
Okay. Thank you. Great. Yeah, I'm familiar with that, the St. Louis Fed, Arthur, but that's a good reminder for any of you that are interested. Rosie, I'll get you in here. I'm sorry, dear. Go ahead.
It's no problem.
Thanks,
Yeah, because I got a dip. I did want to just one of the biggest highlights. We were talking weeks ago about how Europe didn't produce anything. You said you can go. They don't even make their own terracotta pots. So what has come from this? The entire awareness that fucking Gucci, Nike, Coach, Alt Burberry, even that stupid God, I can't remember the name, Balenciaga. They've all been getting their bags from China. They've been bringing it to Europe to put them in wrapping and to slap something on it, and then they ship it off for like a 1,000,000% of a markup. So this is huge in that market because I believe there's a lot of nefarious shit going on in there. And it also is showing people how you've been duped, because if they're telling us we're getting, if they're telling us we're getting these quality products, but they're coming from China, what's the difference from them and Kohl's? So I just think it's great because it blew up a brand that didn't deserve to be. And like it's been a celebrity thing, and they have completely been destroyed, in my humble opinion.
Oh, absolutely, Rosie. That's exactly. You guys think? I know you think we have it bad here. Europe is worse, guys, and Germany too. People still think Germans make cuckoo clocks and watches. I'm telling you guys, take a ride through I'll be in Europe this summer. I'm going to Portugal this summer. There's no factories there either, guys. At least I don't know about Eastern Europe. Western Europe, there's nothing there, guys. Look at Amazon gross receipts in England. England was famous for producing steel and aluminum. They now, and what's left, I said this yesterday, listen to the recording. I gave you the stats. They only control about 25% of the steel and aluminum market in their own country. The other 75%, guess who bought that out? China. And what's the first thing they did when they bought Birmingham? And fired all the British people and took all the good stuff, brought it back to mainland China. This is how fucking determined they are. Not only did they hollow out the factories, they took everything with them, and they're making less reliable steel and aluminum in China and selling it back to the British. under their own label. I mean, guys, it would be genius if it wasn't so fucking evil what the Chinese are doing.
Well,
Uh,
here's the opportunity, Gads, and then I'll drop. The opportunity is for people who know how to sew, for people who know how to create. This creates market once again, because what was deemed as valuable is shot to shit. So people who actually have the ability to do it with their hands here, they can do it now. They have an opportunity. People are willing to pay a price for a quality item. This gives America an advantage again. For those who are skilled and create things, they can absolutely create, and it doesn't come from a mass production line. And there's no Coach or Balenciaga to be in competition with.
oh hell yeah, absolutely. And make no mistake, guys, this deal with Nvidia is a direct shot at China. And I'll tell you why. I should have said this when I opened the space, but better late than never. The US relies heavily on rare earth imports from China. And what are these semiconductors made out of in part? Okay, rare earths. Okay. So now we have a middleman, Nvidia. Again, even though it's in the other Taiwanese company, now China's going to have to. We're going to they're going to have to navigate around that. They're like, okay, well, we're cutting our rare earth imports, our exports to the United States, and Trump just gave them a big middle finger. Oh, go ahead, because Nvidia now they're going to do everything here on continent, and it's a $500 billion investment over several years. So good luck. You could starve us from the rare earths. We don't need that because now we have everything here. Again, this is about the supply chain, guys. For those of you that just popped in the room, I made the point about half an hour ago. I don't want to talk about COVID or all right. I just take your emotional attachment to that issue out of it for one bloody second and listen to what I have to tell you. I don't care if you don't think masks and gloves work. I don't think they work. That's not my point here. We had issues, especially here in the East Coast, with getting PPE, latex gloves at hospitals, etc. We had a dry run in 2020 and we failed, and that was just with fucking masks and gloves, guys. All right, and aspirin. Now everything runs on these semiconductors now. We need to have stuff here. We need to have factories in Houston and Arizona, not in Beijing and Shanghai and Saitong. Okay, it can't work like that anymore. We're going to get caught with our pants down. And as bad as the pandemic was, that's going to be a day at the arena, at the ice arena, compared to something that's actually even more targeted. So, all right, I'm going to go to the speakers here. Cuervo's up next. Let me just again, you need to read this Wall Street Journal article. It was probably the best piece of writing they've had in decades in that rag. But again, continuing, similar uncertainty is trickling throughout the high-end enclaves around the country that have seen prices skyrocket amid high demand and limited inventory. There's a misconception that Aspen, Colorado is insulated from a national or global economy, said real estate agent Stephen Smith of Compass, who has brokered several mega deals in the affluent ski town since COVID. He said he saw 100 million worth of real estate return to the market since April 2nd, including one of his listings, roughly 8,000 square foot ski chalet in Aspen's West End, and is asking 53 million. Listed in December, when Biden was still president, it was marked pending on February 24th, according to Zillow. It was relisted April 8th. Stephen declined to comment on why the deal fell through. You and I know what the reason was, friends. It was a volatile market and people generally like certainty. Okay. This is where I wish Shelly was in here. Our beloved Shelly Dean, our ski bunny, because she's grew up in Colorado in this area. I think Hack did too. Hack Proof. They probably know exactly this neighborhood. It was in that movie, Dumb and Dumber. Remember when Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels had to go to Aspen to see Mary Swanson and return this is the exact demographic in Aspen that is on par really with Beverly Hills and the Hamptons. and Palm Beach with where, desirable locations in the country. And they're having these same issues. And if you've ever met a maniacal downhill skier, nothing gets between them and Aspen. Nothing. Their firstborn children goes before their house in Aspen. This is nothing against, adrenaline junkie skiers. It's not. Uh, you guys have met these people. They'll miss the birth of their grandchildren to go skiing in Aspen. I've worked for these people. They have no attachment to anything except materialism. It's almost like you're not dealing with humans at that point. They're like automatons. It's quite sad, actually. Cuervo, go ahead.
Yeah. Back on this. The tariffs thing. I came up because I wanted to kind of just disagree with Arthur just a little bit, and I'd say that I don't think we're going far enough with tariffs. Um, think about this for just a minute. I posted it down in the bubble chat, Gads, for you. You can look at it. You know, I think what America needs to come to the realization on is that corporate America has been selling out America for decades. Okay. They've been benefiting from cheap labor overseas, and they've been boosting their bottom line by selling out the American workforce, the middle class, by sending good paying jobs overseas for the benefit of who? Their investors. Okay. And so we're all going to have to take a bite of the shit pie, so to speak, with our 401ks and so forth. But let me just ask a simple question. If you have a job and a company says you make too much money, even at 15 bucks an hour, you make too much money. I'm going to go to a communist country like China and I'm going to make my product over there with dollar a day labor. Is that ethical? Should we be investing in companies that do that? Because that's what's been going on in America. And if you really think about what's going on in the stock market, there is a transition of wealth that's occurring, and the people that are benefiting, that have benefited from selling you out, those are the people that are getting, hopefully, I'm not a stock expert, but those are the companies that I hope are getting fucked in this whole deal, because they've been selling you out, the American people, forever. And I would ask the same question of any corporation that's selling you out good paying jobs in America by Americans living here, by importing a cheaper class of labor via the H-1B program that's been exploited under the last two Democrat administrations. They've continually increased the number of cheap labor that they're bringing in legally to displace American workers. So you want to talk about manufacturing? Yeah, manufacturing got destroyed in this country because it was more profitable for an American company to go get their cheap labor from communist countries or controlled by communist countries. China, it's not just Chinese labor. China has their hands in almost every labor force in South America, Central America, and all over Asia. Like, look at corporate America and how much dependency they have on China and all of the entanglements that China has on labor. And that's where we need to target, I think, next on tariffs, is the labor force that's depleting American workforce. I'm going to land it on this one. Why do corporations, why do American companies care so much about selling out the American workforce? Because America has about 350 million consumers, both mostly legal residents, but also the people that live here illegally or legally that aren't citizens. That's 350 million people that are consumers. China has 1.4 billion consumers, 5x the consumerism
Well,
of
people,
America,
but
and that
they're
is
not.
why
They're
they.
not. Cuervo,
What's that?
they're not consumers though. They have 1.4 billion people, but they're not consumers. That otherwise they'd be ahead of us. Only about 30% the Chinese are actually in the consumer market. The other 70 are peasants. That's
Okay,
the,
but
that's
here's
important. That's important though.
it is,
That's an
but
important
here's the
differentiation.
point, Gaz. As China is increasing their middle class because of all of this money that's funneling into China, they're increasing or building up their middle class, which are becoming more consumers, right? They're creating more consumers. This is what happened with the gas wars that happened, like, I don't know, what was it, like 15 years ago? As communist as China was increasing their middle class, they were buying more cars and sucking up more oil. And we had to compete with that. And that's why gas prices went up back in what, 2008, I think it was, 2007, 2008. So yeah, I mean, they have peasants, but as those peasants become more middle class, they become bigger consumers. And that is what American companies are looking at. They're looking at the opportunity to grow China's middle class because there'll be more consumers there than here.
Maybe, Cuervo. I'm not sold on the Chinese really empowering anybody of their own people. I think that they have so many levers built into how they do things on an economic scale that they need the surplus population to remain in peasant status because their economy, I think, at scale, even with the almost 2 billion people, I think is only two-thirds of ours. Again, that just shows the power of that's our big flex is America. That's our ace, guys. Is the fact that we're the number one customer in the world at 20 trillion a year in spending. Very hard to match that. Uh, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how China's going to build a middle class when most, 7 out of 10 people don't have access to the internet. Uh, I don't know, Cuervo. We'll see. I would say for now, put me down in strong disagreement on that concept. I hope it's not the case. I hope I'm wrong though, because I want I take the politics out of it. I just don't think it's right that the Chinese people are enslaved, and I know that a lot of them are fanatics. But good stuff, man. Good commentary from everybody today. Let me just another paragraph here, really quick, and then we'll go to Fed Up. I'm trying to give you snapshots of different parts of the country. Now let's go to New York bedroom communities. This will hit close to home for those of you on the East Coast, the Beast Coast, like me. So here we go. On the morning of April 7th, I'm sorry, in parts of northern Jersey where people can easily commute to Wall Street, buyers and sellers are used to real estate deals ebbing and flowing with the stock market. In Ridgewood, about 20 miles outside Manhattan, 1.8 million, a 1.8 million house, that's cheap, by the way. 1.8 million in Midtown Manhattan is like 300,000 bucks anywhere else. That's pennies in that area. Fell out of a contract on April 2nd, the day Trump signed the EO imposing tariffs, said Charlie Oppler, CEO of Prominent Properties Sotheby's. We have Sotheby's in my hometown. I'm in a town of 4,800 people, yet we have one of the premier real estate brokers in the country, chains, in my little piddly ass town. And why? Because it's on the Atlantic Ocean. It's a peninsula with housing around a harbor. Hence, that's why people want to live there because it's on the ocean for no other reason. We don't have a Dunkin' Donuts in my town. We don't have a McDonald's. We don't have a wall, nothing. We have seafood shanties where you can get scallops. That's about it. That's our idea of fast food here. And like surf shops where you can get, you know, a watered down cup of coffee from a barista. The white girl barista that's got braids and a nose ring, and otherwise very attractive girl. But we don't have a lot to offer tourism, I guess is what I'm saying, outside of the ocean, which is huge. Uh, the roughly 4,000 square foot colonial was listed in late March. Quote, "You don't know how much of a down payment was coming from liquid assets," said Oppler, a past president of the National Association of Realtors, who said the buyer's deposit was returned because the deal fell apart during the attorney review period. That has in real life affected some properties. This is how fragile these people are, guys, that they have 2 bad days in the stock market and they're pulling out of deals that they would automatically make on real estate without giving it a second thought. I mean, wow. Talk about having absolute, living and dying by the S&P 500. By the way, the market's about to open in a few minutes. It looks like it's going to be another it's going to be another rise today. Investors are digesting the latest earnings and tariff volatility. Looks like it's going to be another good day today. The latest batch of first quarter earnings reports are enjoyed in a recent decline in market turmoil. So things are leveling out here, friends. Arthur, did you want to say something quickly? Go ahead.
No, market is open. Market's been open for almost half an hour. So S&P 500 up 60 basis points. NASDAQ doing a little better. But yeah, nice start to the day, and advancers over decliners 2-1. So it's a good start. But I would say,
Yep.
Just stay tuned. There'll be lots more volatility. And, traditionally the bottom that we saw last week is not the only bottom. That'll be retested at some point. That's the way I'm playing it. So just thought I would pass that along. But nice to see some green.
Yeah, it can, and I just realized I have a watch on that I have not set back from daylight savings. What an idiot! It's 9:58 a.m. Fucking dope. I've been looking at this for when did we turn the clocks back? 3 weeks ago. That goes to show you look at your phone for time more than anything. Thank you, Arthur. And I got to refresh this. I'm on CNBC Business right now, looking at with the Wall Street feed right now. It looks like the 3 major indexes are clawing back though from the losses. That's one thing I could say. I think that Nvidia deal really calmed down the market, in my opinion, guys, because Nvidia is one of the Mag 7, one of the Magnificent 7 tech stocks, and that $500 billion, guys. That's some serious fuck you money that they just invested in the U.S. It's a huge middle finger to China too. I think because Trump had the Salvadoran president there yesterday, and the Buckeyes football team, it kind of got sidetracked in the ether. That was a major deal that went down. Now look at that. That's one company, albeit a huge investment. Imagine, friends, when we actually get a solidified one-off tariff deal with a particular country in turmoil, like South Korea, like Japan, like Taiwan, etc. Unusual Whales is reporting that the UK might actually be now, we don't really do a lot of trade with the UK, believe it or not, but they like American imports. Okay. We'll see what happens there. Scott Bessent is in Argentina right now with Malay. He's been there since last night. He did an interview on Bloomberg last night. He has been the MVP of this administration, guys. Make no mistake. I only knew a little bit about him before. I thought John Paulson was going to be the Treasury Secretary, or Senator Bill Hagerty from Tennessee, because he knows the Asian markets really well. He was the ambassador to Japan in Trump's first administration. But I'm learning a lot about Bessent. In my opinion, guys, if he pulls this off, he could be on JD Vance's short list as vice president. The only thing affecting, which it doesn't bother me, it bothers other people, that he's openly gay and married to a dude. Shocker, a gay guy is married to a dude. Again, it's not a problem for me. It's a problem for other people. This guy has has a strategic tactician's mind. He's like the Henry Kissinger of the global economy, like Kissinger was with foreign relations. This guy knows how to devalue foreign currency from an American perspective. He knows how to devalue fiat using very logical and sound tactics. Okay. There aren't a lot of people that can do this type of work, guys. And he's a smooth operator. These things are invaluable. So could we be looking at Vance Percent in 2028? Because this job doesn't stop when Trump's out of office, guys. This reset is going to be, we're going to be in the midst of it in 4 years, not at the end of it. Who knows? All I know is he's been the best hire that Trump has had. He exceeds Mnuchin, who was the head
And
of Goldman Sachs. Yep.
Gads, he was left a big bag of shit too by Yellen, right? Because there's $9 trillion that has to be reinvested this year of U.S. Treasuries, and that's because Yellen, for years, instead of taking advantage of much lower rates to refinance that debt out 10, 20, 30 years, she refinanced it out short term. So the last 6 months of this year, $9 trillion of U.S. debt needs to be rolled over. And I couldn't think of a better person to have in the Treasury role to deal with what's in front of you guys. I mean, it's
Yep.
he's got to thread the needle. He really does.
And he's been, I think he's going to do to the yuan what he did to the British pound when he was working for Soros in the early 90s. I honestly think that he's going to bring down the Chinese, not bring it down. He's going to defang the Chinese export machine economy. Guys, this is hard work to do this. You're going up against a behemoth with China, and you have to be every bit as crafty as they are, if not more so. So, we're not trying to crash the Chinese economy. We're just trying to remove their monopolistic tendencies. And you do that by, they devalue their currency as it is. You have to fight fire with a blowtorch. That's why I think Trump is kind of devaluing the US dollar, but he's going to shift into making it sound money again at the end of this rodeo. I don't know what that looks like, but
Hey, I just noticed Boeing, who was in the news overnight because China, I don't know if you touched on this, but China has announced no additional Boeing purchases or a halt on Boeing purchases. But what's interesting is the stock is only down 1%. Overnight, it was down, I think, 3 or 4%. And right now, it's only down 1 and a bit. So, I mean, that's something to watch. But you're going to be seeing a lot more of this sort of thing in the coming days.
right on. Yeah, Boeing. What was the deal with Boeing? China kind of took the wind out of their sails a little bit.
China, yeah. So the Chinese government announced a halt on Boeing purchases. I mean, there's two players, right? Boeing and Airbus. So
Yep.
Airbus got a bit of a pop, and Boeing was down a fair bit more. And Boeing's had a lot of problems, in the last couple of years. Quality problems for the most part. But I was expecting it to be down a lot more on this news, and it's only down 1%. So that's sometimes you have to look at like what's expected to happen and what actually happens. That sort of flies in the face of the news, and pay attention to that. So to me, that's a positive that it's only down 1% on the back of that. I haven't heard a statement from the company yet or from the U.S. government at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if it closes positive today. The way that it's starting to trade here, it's now down less than 1%. So anyway, I find that kind of interesting because I thought it would be hit a little harder.
It makes sense. I was just looking at my portfolio really quick. on one of my apps, and I could tell you I have them kind of in folders by category. When Milei became president, and I invested in a lot of Argentinian companies because they thought, okay, they're gonna do a reset of after 5 decades of socialism and kind of free up capital down in Argentina. On paper, guys, Argentina should be a massive exporter. They have excellent red meat. They have wine. They have other things. I don't, I don't know, but agriculture wise, they should be up there with Brazil in terms of being an exporter. And they haven't been because, like I said, it's been 6 decades of socialist presidents. But anyway, I digress. I was looking at my Argentinian companies stocks, and these are all stocks that they're between, companies that have shares. Their IPOs were between 5 and 30. We're not talking a lot of money here, but it's ripping. Those Argentinian stocks are ripping right now. I'm up in all of them. I'm green on all of them, and it's not like I have a lot. I think there's 3 or 4, one, two. There's 5 companies here. Nothing tech, but they're all Argentinian agriculture based, etc., and they're all going up. That has something to do with percent being in Argentina. That could be a deal. And I know Malay floated zero tariffs. That might be a country that we could do that with, because Americans are very partial to, like, wine is a big thing in Argentina. Okay, um, but people like French wine, they like French wine. If they like Italian wine, they like Italian wine. I wouldn't be against having Argentinian wines exported at zero tariff because they're going to face stiff competition. There's just one example, right? Or Argentinian beef against Texas beef or Oklahoma beef cattle. I'm fine with that because they're going to be in a hyper competitive market. You can't be. The idea is not zero tariff with everybody. Uh, I know it sounds good on paper, but it's not good business sense. Okay. Yeah, Arthur, go ahead.
Yeah, also wanted to point out Argentina is it's a very young demographic, very, very bright demographic, good schools, lots of natural resources. You mentioned wine and beef that they're known for, but burgeoning natural resources that have been neglected because of a socialist government. And keep in mind, Malay is he's a student of Austrian economics, so he is he's a very, very fiscally conservative fellow and is all about sound money. And I think that's definitely a country to watch. But the problem in South America is, you know, a country like Chile a number of years ago looked like it was on the come, and you get a socialist government that gets elected, and it can be very cyclical. But the one thing that South America has is a phenomenal demographic profile. It's a very, very young continent, and lots of opportunity there. So these are very positive moves, I think, building those types of strategic trade relationships with countries like Argentina. I believe it's a great move, very positive.
Yeah, that's there's no other reason why Vicente is in Buenos Aires. I mean, he's not down there to talk about, you know, uh, secure borders with Venezuela or anything, or he's there to talk of making a deal. Malay is really, of the Western leaders, he's the only like libertarian. So like if he was in the United States, he would not be a Republican in the United States. He would be a libertarian. Uh, so they've really gone 360 in Argentina from like a Bernie Sanders type guy to uh, a Ron Paul type guy, right? Complete opposite in every way. So, and I wish them well. We're gonna wind down, people. If you guys want to make any commentary, I think I've given you too much information today. Um, but feel free. Now's the time. We'll another 5-10 minutes here. I'd like to hear your comments briefly on anything I've discussed. Uh, markets are looking good. And I want to reemphasize to all of you, Cuervo, we'll get to him in a second. I want to reemphasize to all of you that uh, I know at times I'm probably sounding like a Democrat from the 1980s complaining about rich people, but I'm not complaining about rich people. I'm complaining about oligarchs, basically, the elite. Okay. So I've never voted for a Democrat. I've been a registered Republican my entire life since I was 18. Never voted for a Democrat in my life, and I don't plan on it. Um, and if you think tariffs are hurting Trump, and I think, Arthur, you talked about it, where a lot of middle class people aren't invested in the stock market. There was a recent poll that came out yesterday, and Trump commented on it on Truth Social. MAGA is getting stronger as a result of these. MAGA supports these tariffs. Now you know why he's not pump faking here. He's committed because his voting bloc, something like 40% of registered Republicans in that poll are identifying as MAGA. They're not even identifying as Republican anymore. So the tariffs are not hurting him with his base. In fact, he's getting stronger in his base, particularly with Hispanics who were first time Trump voters in November. Uh, working class Hispanics in states like Texas and Florida are clearly in the Republican camp now. The Democrats have lost them, possibly forever. So, in that, whether it's Cuban, Mexican, Venezuelan, Salvadoran, Brazil, all stripes of Hispanic, clearly in the MAGA camp now. And they're the ones in theory that would get these jobs, and have a nice middle class life. So we'll see. Cuervo, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Gads, for daily. You kind of keep us focused on what is probably the most important thing, as opposed to just hey, let's talk about everything under the sun. So, which could keep your space going for 8 hours a day, right? But just want to say thanks for keeping a very focused topic on a daily basis. And I want to say this too. What's his name? Jim Cramer, who predicted that we would have a crash worse than 1929. That guy should be fired. The fear mongering that went into the stock market, ups and downs over the last couple weeks. I mean, literally should be fired. Um, and for all the people that were complaining about, oh my God, my 401k, oh man, Trump, blah blah blah. A week later, their 401ks are probably all benefiting from this market turmoil. So most of these people complaining aren't going to have to tap into their 401k for like 20 years anyways. So it's just all theater, in my humble opinion. But yeah, thanks for keeping us focused, Gads. Appreciate you.
No, hey man, I appreciate all you guys. I'm interested in a lot of boring shit, and I'm going to do my best to make it interesting because I try to be into everything. Okay, so that, like, I'm not a crypto guy, but I'm not gonna. You'll see me once in a while on listener mode in a financial space, um, because I'm not an expert at these things. We all have investments, but I do understand economics on a remedial level. That's why I like to have spaces called remedial math. Um, I think I can communicate the basics, and then you guys could go on your own path. I've always been into economics and the market. In junior high, we sold chocolate bars to raise money to buy stocks. I remember my class, we bought Home Depot stocks in the early '90s when they went public, I think. I've just always been that kid, always in the business club in high school, on top of sports and other pursuits. Always in that stuff in college too. Always in the economics club, mostly because you got taken to like these amphitheaters and got to hear really smart people talk and get excused out of class. That's why I did it. Where I would not have that opportunity otherwise. So learned a lot from these people. It was invaluable getting a 45-minute symposium from, some professor of economics from, whatever, from not like Stanford or any prestigious place, but like, Bentley College or Babson College, known business schools, right? In my area. So to wrap up, friends, this goes with what you were talking about, Cuervo. I think the problem is the general public thinks that Dave Portnoy represents MAGA, and that we're all equally pissed at our. And that's another thing too. Why I'm so invested in this is because I'm self-employed, so I do my own retirement, my own IRA, my own real estate investments, my own stock trading. I do that all I don't hire anybody. I don't have a 401k, obviously. So that's another reason why I'm kind of too into this, because I handle all my own stuff. Okay. So when you have your hands in it every day, and I don't mean day trading, because I don't do that at all. I just buy at strategic moments, and then I don't look at my apps for months on end. When you do your own retirement and your own investing, you can't help but be into it, right? And even if my portfolio fell, I'm going to be working another 15 or 20 years, guys. I don't plan on retiring anytime soon, so I don't really care about it. It has minimal importance to me if I lose 33% of my investment, because I don't need that money tomorrow. I don't even need it 10 years from now. So it's kind of immaterial. Me getting mad about that would be an incredible waste of emotional capital, right, so to speak. So another thing to remember, and I want to bring this up again because I don't think I drove the point home enough. This tariff phase of American history is not affecting President Trump at all. Like I gave you the statistics, people are supporting this. And I think I myself was very guilty of saying, normies, the American vote, Americans are stupid. They're disconnected from the news or what's really affecting them. I could be wrong. And if you thought like I did, you could be wrong. Because I'm not seeing anything, any public indicator that any data that's suggesting that, the Trump base is doubling down in support of these tariffs. Okay. They saw the Oprah Winfrey interview from 1988. They know that this is what this guy's all about. He's not a free market conservative. He's never claimed to be. I think a lot of people think as he slapped that Republican label on that he's a free market guy. And so you've got two things there. And the battle I've been fighting with fellow Trump voters who are against tariffs, and that they think that we've been engaged in free trade since 1994, and we haven't been. We've been engaged in manipulated trade. That's being called free trade. Giving China domination over the West is not free trade. Okay, it wasn't in 1994, and it's not in 2025. So I have a fundamental disagreement with what some people label as free trade. And it's stupid Republicans, guys. It's stupid libertarians that spend way too much time reading Milton Friedman. And you don't even have to read. You should look at Ross Perot's campaign in 1992. And then when he talked about NAFTA in 1994, you should go on YouTube, and in half an hour's time, you'll get Ross Perot will explain to you from American perspective more than any Milton Friedman book could ever do for your knowledge base, in that countries that don't make anything can't buy anything. What did Ross Perot mean by that? When you take manufacturing out of Americans' hands and outsource it to Mexico and China and India, you become a poorer nation. You become a debtor nation. You become just like we're in right now. We're, as it stands today, 15 April 2025, we are indebted to, over dependent on China, India, Mexico for certain things. Okay, so that's invaluable for you to know. When we lose our manufacturing, we lose our soul as a nation, basically. Because look what it's brought us, the elimination of the middle class, the Rust Belt collapsing, uh, the fact that things cost more money. That's what he meant by we can't buy anything. We've made ourselves poor because politicians decided slavery in China is better than a middle class life for a guy in Detroit, Michigan, on the assembly line at Ford or Chrysler. That's when it all changed, friends. So Ross Perot will teach you more than Milton Friedman could in 10 lifetimes. Milton Friedman's all about theory and his theories on things, but it was never put into practice on any scale like Ross Perot did. Nice, go ahead. You're going to be the last speaker. How are you?
I'm good, Gads, and I apologize. I wanted to dip in earlier in the beginning because I came in right when you were talking about Real ID, but I wanted to get a post together for everybody to kind of get an understanding of it, and I put it down in the bubble. So that's all I wanted to say. I can never top anything you say about the economy or what's going on with the market. So I put it, really explained what this whole Real ID is, and everybody can read it. It's not that long, but just to encapsulate for myself, I got one last year because I had to renew my license anyway. And I'm an old broad that is pretty much a hermit. I do not travel. I don't do international travel, haven't done it in a long time, but I don't have a passport. And I thought, you know what, if I need to travel domestically, let me just pull the trigger on it. But every state is different in the requirements for what they want for Real ID. Once again, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent, unfortunately, this was put forth 20 years ago, and it's taken this long to implement, and I explain why. If this would have been put forth today, I'm almost 100% positive that the push would be for every state that has to prove U.S. citizenship. That's not where we're at. This is not the panacea to get rid of election fraud at all. This is just to prove your identity. And it was put forth after the 911 Commission for secured identity for people to fly domestically, to enter nuclear facilities or government buildings. That's it. So anyway, all the information's down there. Don't be afraid of it. I'm not like Gad said. I only did it for that reason. If I need to fly, since I don't have a passport, that's what I'm going to need if I want to do it domestically. It does not take the place of a passport to fly internationally. But again, I spelled it all out. So I just wanted to put that in there. So in case people really have questions about, do I really need to get it or don't I hope I dotted every I and crossed every T. So thanks so much, Gads, for letting me point that out. Appreciate it.
No worries, niece. Thanks for the compliment. Just remember, guys, my argument is not better than yours, or my opinion's not better than yours. I'm just, don't be afraid to weigh in. Like Cuervo and I sometimes have disagreements and stuff like that. I could be wrong. He could be wrong. It's the important thing is I want to hear what you have to say, right? So the about Real ID, I'm fine that you brought that up again, niece, because I don't really have a problem with it, and I just intrinsically, right, do the opposite of whatever Thomas Massey complains about, because the Patriot Act gave, as much as I'm against that, by the way, the Patriot Act gave libertarians endless runway to complain about civil liberties being violated. You have to remember something, guys. Libertarians are not really big on national security, because national security is reliant upon the federal government, a centralized model, and libertarians don't like power in the federal government. So even though they'll give you 50 different arguments and mental gymnastics to say they want I mean, Ron Paul didn't even want to, when he was in Congress, guys, in the early 2000s, post 9/11. I mean, he didn't even want Bush interrogating prisoners that we got in Guantanamo. I mean, he wasn't even for that. I mean, they're not for deportation. You know, they're not for anything centralized. So you can't be a libertarian and be for national security. National does not mean state; it means federal. It means all 50 states. I don't even know if they talk themselves into thinking that it's the right thing, but you have to remember something. They're not big on the federal government. And so they're probably against everything Kristi Noem's doing because that's federal, Department of Homeland Security. They probably would stand in the way of things Tom Homan was doing because he's a czar. He's not even an elected person. So they probably think he's like an unelected oligarch, which he's the furthest thing from it. So the reason why I get frustrated with them is that they're too far off the reservation with the federal government. I understand it's a big bloated behemoth, but unfortunately, the founding fathers didn't bargain that we would be invaded by 20 million people. In 1776, they didn't think that George Washington never thought one of his successors would be stupid enough to allow 20 million criminals into this country. So it's kind of hard for Thomas Massey to opine about the Federalist Papers when they weren't thinking about that in the 1780s. Okay, so it's I don't know. I understand there are Constitution and whatnot is our founding document, the best document ever, of course. But I would say the founding fathers guys accounted for like 98% of what we need, but there was still a gap, and I don't blame them. They weren't perfect men, but they were living in a different time, and the world is a very different place now than it was after the revolution. So you really can't necessarily use that template for the extraordinary circumstance we're in now. So that's why libertarians just at the starting line, they're not going to see eye to eye with us on Real ID because they look at it as a subsidiary of the Patriot Act, which I happen to agree with them on is unconstitutional. But I mean, if we're getting to the point now where we're arguing with libertarians about the concept of a federal ID, I mean, I don't know if they're on our side anymore, guys. I mean, it's not federal overreach to get an ID that is approved by the government. I mean, Rand Paul has a passport. He's a member of Congress. He has to take diplomatic trips. Thomas Massey, ditto. They have passports. Were they complaining when they had to get a passport? When Rand Paul takes his family to the Bahamas on your taxpayer dime, does he complain about having a passport to go to the Nassau airport in the Bahamas to go through customs? I don't think he's complaining then. I think he's thinking about getting a suntan and drinking a few beers in the Bahamas. I don't think he's worried about getting his ID checked. So we're not, we can't really do this game with them anymore. I don't really want to entertain their bullshit and their pushback. So because by saying they think Real ID is unconstitutional, what do they think about DMVs in particular states that are giving fake licenses or licenses to illegal aliens? Do they think the federal government has a role at that point, or should I leave it to the states where you have governors like J.D. Pritzker in Illinois, or what's the lady's name, and Tina Hotek in Oregon? Do you really want to leave it in their hands? Or Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan? No, thank you. I'll take my chances with Trump and the federal government on this one. Sorry. States' rights are inalienable sometimes against the federal government, but I don't think Gretchen Whitmer is really doing things in the best interest of the state of Michigan, for example, on anything. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it, guys. You guys have a wonderful day. Hope you got something out of this. think I'm taking the day off of work, so let me know if there's any good spaces to listen to as I do shit around the house here. So you guys hang in, have a good day. Cheers.